Hello YouTube, welcome. This is my first video in English, so I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. It's not my native language. Normally I do videos about coloring comic books and things like that, but today I'm going to show you something different, how to make a lightsaber effect like the ones in Star Wars. So, what we need is a picture, something like this one, and a lightsaber hilt. A good thing is if your hilt has a stick, so you can use the stick as a guide for your blade. But not to worry, if you have an empty hilt like this one, it doesn't matter. I'm going to show you how to put the blade right compared to the hilt. So I will do my blade on a new document, and I create this in A4 and 300 dpi. This is much bigger than what I need, but it's better to do too big than too small. It's better to scale the blade down than try to scale it up, because the blade will be smudgy and pixelated and everything like that. The first background layer I will fill with a color, whatever, it doesn't matter, but it's good to have something to see what's as a contrast, so we can see what's going on. Then with this one, this icon, I create a new layer. That layer I create black, or I fill it with black, and this is something we need. We need the layer to be black, and I will explain later on why. Then I create an empty layer on top of that. On the empty layer I will create the core of the blade. For that I need white color and a round brush. And this one is too small, so I scale it up. And if you, like me, has a drawing tablet with a pressure sensitive pen, you want to turn that off, so the blade would have the same wide width, thickness. I don't find a word, it's not my language. And to do the blade completely straight, you start here, not too close to the edge, something like this, and hold shift and drag. This way it doesn't matter if I pull aside, it will be a straight line. This will also give this nice round end. If we look at the movies, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, we can see the blade has a sharp tip, like a medieval sword. How to do that? We do the blade shorter and take the move tool. If you don't get those handles around the blade, you can check this box, show transform controls, or you can press Ctrl T or Command T if you're using a Mac. Take the top one in the middle and drag it out like that and confirm. So now you have a more sharp end. Now I hit Ctrl E or Command E to merge it down to the black layer. And the layer setting is normal. I switch that one to screen. Screen mode is very good if you want to create things that will act as light. Black will be invisible, dark colors will show up weakly, light colors will show up very good, and white will show as white. And now I will duplicate this layer by dragging it down to the new layer icon. Oops. And I will do this so I have 4 copies. And I will turn off the visibility of those others. Zoom in so I see what's happening now. It doesn't matter if you start at the top or the bottom. I usually start at the top like this. Go to filter, blur, and choose Gaussian blur. In older version of Photoshop, it was very simple. If your blade was 10 pixel wide, you choose 10 pixel blur on the first one, 20 on the second one, and 40 on the third one, and so on. But now I don't know why they have Adobe has changed this scale, so we have to do it eyeball it. The first one is the core of the blade, and I will give it just a little amount of blur so the edge will give the feeling the blade is round, like a light bulb light tube or something. But if you prefer this sharp edge, you can use that. Hit OK, turn off the visibility and go to the next layer, turn on the visibility, filter, and Gaussian blur again. And now we're going to do the glow closest to the core of the blade. Do this whatever feels good, but not too much. Hit OK. Turn off that, go to the next layer. Same procedure. Gaussian blur. And now we will do the light that is more far away from the core of the blade. Something like that. Hit OK. And next layer. And Gaussian blur. And this will be the very soft light. Like that. Now the picture itself has been totally dissolved into a light blur. Now I can turn on the visibility of all those layers, and you should have something like this, a glowing white thing. Now I press Ctrl E repeatedly so I have the light on the black layer but not down to the green one. Since I just want to use the blade in my picture, I will cut this piece out so I don't have too much black in my picture, but I use it, have a good safe distance here. So I take the select tool, rectangle, drag it out and go to select and inverse. And after that I press delete. And if I turn off the background layer, it should look something like this. And now I deselect. Those small squares in the picture, the chessboard thing, is to show there is no information in Photoshop. This area is complete transparent. Now I can take my move tool and drag this over to my picture, and we can see it's way too big, but it's okay. I'm going to scale this down. But first I'm going to right click on the layer with the blade and convert to smart object. The good thing with the smart object is if you scale them down and then scale them up, they will not lose quality. Photoshop will remember how this layer looks like when it's as biggest. So I scale this one down so it will be easier to work with. Same here, those handles, you just scale them down. If they don't show up, Control T or Command T. Something like this to begin with anyway. Now if you have those controls handle the control handle is shown up for you. You can see if you put your mouse in the corner, the mouse will transform to a bend arrow thing. This means you can start to rotate the layer. And I will line it up with my lightsaber hilt. To make this easier, I turn down the opacity of this layer so I can see through the blade. And to align the blade properly, the backside of not having English as my native language, to align the blade accordingly to the hilt, let it the end of the blade be at the bottom of the hilt and align it with the hilt, and then the rest will just follow along, so it looks like it's coming out of the hilt. But I'm holding the hilt in this picture at an angle towards the camera, so I need the blade in perspective, and to do that you can click on one of those and then right click and use distort, not perspective. Perspective is harder to work with. The distort is much easier to work with. So I can drag each corner as I want. So on the back side of the blade I squeeze it down, still try to keep it in line with a hilt. I prefer the blade type in the movie that is kind of thin, not too wide, so something like this. You can mix with this how much you want, but I'm not going in to be too precise, otherwise this video will be too long, but take your time. And now I can drag the opacity up to 100%, and now I will erase this part of the blade, but I will do this with standard soft brush in Photoshop. Brush I mean. Hardness down to 0, pick up the size, and I will turn down the opacity of the brush. But now the downside of having a smart object layer is I can't paint on it. You see, I have this small sign that shows this layer is not, I cannot paint on it. So I can right click on the layer, rasterize layer. It means it will turn the layer back to normal layer, and now I can start to paint on this. I select the color black, start to paint away the part of the blade that I doesn't want. And the same here. You can be more precise if you want to. I don't want this video to be too long, but I choose the color white, and I can start to build up light down here. If we watch the movie Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, there is a close-up on Qui-Gon Jinn, and you can see on his green lightsaber there is like I don't know the English name. When you fire a gun, there will be a flame from the gun, like something like that. It's more intensive light at the opening of the hilt. So I paint on some light here. And it's better to do it slowly, build it up, and be patient with it. So the black layer look something like this. And now we are going to put color on this. And I'm going to do this with this layer, this icon. It will create a layer type that adjust color, light and things. So click on that. Oops. Click on that once. And choose color balance. You can choose hue and saturation, but color balance give you much more of more options. And if I start to pull those levers here, we can see the entire picture is changing color, and I don't want that. And I guess you don't want that either. So I press this little icon, and what this thing does is this adjustment layer affects only the layer right beneath it. So it will affect the blade layer only. And we have this menu: shadows, midtones and highlights. Shadows, there are these gray, dark gray areas around the blade, the glow. And this is why we need the black layer and not just the white thing, because Photoshop see this as gray. It is gray, even if it's look like transparent white. So if we don't have the black layer, Photoshop will see it as transparent white, and we cannot colorize it. So shadow, if I turn up the red, we can see a red color around the blade. And if you think this is enough, a very subtle color, it's okay. And you can try this one out, preserve luminosity. You see a difference. So if you want this on, okay. If you want this off. But we can go to the next step. Midtones is this range between the darkest and the lightest area. So I turn the red color up, and I even choose the yellow one. This gives a more warmer color. And now highlights. Highlights are the closest to the blade. This color balance will only affect gray colors. They will not affect black and white. So if you want the inner core of your blade to be affected, you have to make it slightly gray, very, very light gray. But in the movie, most of the time, the blade is white. So closest to the center of the blade, I turn up on the red and the yellow. And we can also see closest to the hilt, it's not a very good effect, and it's because when I painted on this this white, it was too much color. But you can build it back and forth as you want, and I'm not going to work on that now because of the time of the video, but it doesn't look good. I agree on that. But when you feel this is okay, save the image in Photoshop's own file format, because if you want to change the blade, now I look like a evil Sith Lord or something like that with a red blade. I can open up this and double click on this layer, and I can set all this to 0 and start all over again. So I can make it a Jedi blade if I want to, and even with the green color I prefer to put some of the yellow into it for the warmth. So you can experiment with this, have fun, and if you want to save the picture for the internet, you can save it as a copy, JPEG, and there is even this export save for web. So this will automatically make a copy of the picture in JPEG, GIF, PNG, whatever you want, and you can resize it. So if I want a smaller version, and this will not affect your original picture, this is a copy. So this is it, how to make a lightsaber effect. And this is also good for making laser blast, Harry Potter magic, lens flares, lightning, whatever you want. And you can even make other smaller lights in the background or whatever. And if you really want to go into things, you can paint in light, so it looks like the blade is affecting the areas around the blade. So it's all about how much time you want to put into things. Alright, if you like this, hit like. If you don't like it, hit dislike, and write a comment if you want. Ask a question. If your native language is Swedish, I prefer that because I have problem with typing in English, and I hope you understand what I was saying or tried to say anyway. So have a nice day.